Is it time for us to hit the panic button with the Detroit Pistons? We'll discuss it. Today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years for the Locked On Network. Been a Credential Media member now for the last 3 years. I appreciate all of you guys who make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And that's another great way to support the podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into an even bigger potential win with college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. I also want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in America. We all appreciate all of your guys' support. There is a lot that has happened. I mean, I only went 3 days without, or it's been, 2 days without recording. It's just a weekend. Just went without recording during the weekend, really. Friday, Saturday, I'm recording Sunday night. And there's been a lot that's happened already. There's been a lot that's happened. We're going to talk about a lot. I struggled to figure out where exactly I wanted to start. Because like I said, there has been a lot. But let's start with, is it time to hit the panic button? Later, we'll talk about how their defense, the Pistons, that is, the defense has went completely ghost. And then also, later on, we'll talk about, are there some players that we should have expected this from because they're regressing to the mean? We'll talk about that as well coming up. But like I said, we'll start with the panic button. Should they be hitting it? I was told before I started recording the podcast by some people, start with something positive before you start going in because it's going to be negative. So the first positive thing I have to say, I guess, is I just finished my first class going back to college. I got 101 grade on in my history class. So there's a positive. Is it time to hit the panic button? It's getting close. For me, it's getting close now. I am fully aware for a lot of people, there's a good section of the fan base that no matter what really happens this year, that they weren't expecting too much anyways this year. So unless they just completely lost every game the rest of the season, this is going to be a successful season for them, for those fans, no matter what. And if that's the case, I'm not discussing them. But for someone like myself, and for someone like any of the other fans that had any kind of expectations, even if it's not just championship expectations, any kind of expectations for this team in the playoffs, I'm getting close to hitting the panic button. And reason number one, I'm getting close to hitting the panic button is I don't know if we recorded when we got the update with Ausar, but the last update we got with Ausar Thompson from JB Bickerstaff is he will be out a while. That we didn't get an exact time. We didn't get a timetable. All we got was he will be out a while. And before the games, when they list players that are out and they have to put an injury next to it, it says right ankle sprain. That's all. We haven't been given any. We don't know if it's. We don't know the severity. We don't know how long. That's all we have. But JB saying he will be out for a while. When he was also asked about Cade, he said, "Oh, Cade's day to day, but Ausar is going to be a while." That's concerning. If you look at the typical recovery time for ankle sprains, it's around 4 to 12 weeks, depending on the severity of it. And we don't know what the severity is. So if Ausar is out the rest of the year, it's going to be tough. It's going to just be, I think, flat out bad probably for the team. We'll get into the numbers that show that. If he's able to come back before the season ends and get warmed up going into the playoffs, then maybe they can get back to hitting their stride into the playoffs and, everything will be fine. Maybe they slip, but they'll be playing their best basketball once they get to the playoffs. That's reason number one. If Ausar is out the rest of the year, they're going to have problems. They're going to be done. They're going to be tough. It is what it is. And we'll get into the numbers later on when we talk about the defense. But this weekend, reason number two, this weekend, the Detroit Pistons lost to the tanking Brooklyn Nets on Saturday. This one was without Cade. Cade came back to play against Miami on Sunday, and they were down by almost 30 points to the Miami Heat. Over the weekend, they lost to the tanking Nets and the Miami Heat the score ended up being 121-110. They got obliterated. I mean, straight up obliterated by the Miami Heat. The day after, allowing the Brooklyn Nets to come back from a 20-plus point deficit, let them come back and win the game at the end. The problem for this isn't just a 2-game sample. This isn't just, it was a weekend back-to-back. Just throw it out the window. It doesn't mean anything. This team has not been playing good basketball ever since the All-Star break. They have not been playing good basketball. It's now been 10 games since the All-Star break. They are 5-5 in these 10 games. They are 14th in net rating. They have fallen to 16th in offensive rating. And they have fallen from the best defense in the NBA to the 13th best defense in the NBA. 13th. They have fallen to 13th in defensive rating since the All-Star break. And of those 5 wins, one of them was a miracle win against the Cleveland Cavaliers in which they did not have Donovan Mitchell or James Harden, and it took a Daniss Jenkins miracle. Refs blew a whistle on a 3-point foul at the end of the game just to force overtime and get that one out. The other win was against OKC that didn't have 6 of their top 7 players, and even they stayed into the game late into that one. One of the wins is over a Chicago Bulls team, and the other one was the very first game coming out All-Star break against the Knicks team that the Pistons have dominated this year. But 4 of those wins, or I didn't include the Magic. They beat the Magic as well, who are also struggling. But 3, at the very least 3 of those wins are against teams that weren't even playing their best player, and in those games that they won, they didn't look good. They have not looked good, period, since the All-Star break. Outside of the Knicks game, where they beat down the Knicks again, the first game coming out of All-Star break, after that, they have been terrible. They have not been good. This is not even close to the team that we have seen before the All-Star break. It's not just the defense falling apart, it's the offense that's also falling apart. And part of that is due to the fact that they're not generating their defense is not generating enough offense for them. We know I've said this a ton on the podcast. Anyone who listens knows that the Detroit Pistons offense is really their defense. They get fast break points. They get points off turnovers. They get early transition looks. If you force them to be stuck in the half court all game, they are going to struggle. That's why how good their defense is matters so much to this team, because it is their offense. If you look against the Miami Heat today, the Miami Heat destroyed them in points off turnovers in the first half of this game. Just absolutely killed them in the first half. They had 16 points off turnovers. The Pistons had 4 in the first half. Miami dominated them on second chance points, 15-5 in the first half. After the first half, the game was over. It was just basically done for at that point. Miami on the game beat them 22-6, fast break points. You go back to the Brooklyn game. Brooklyn had 20 second chance points. The Pistons 13. They both had the same amount of fast break points. The Pistons had 21 points off turnovers. Brooklyn had 19. The Pistons allowed Brooklyn to get 12 offensive rebounds. The Pistons only had 11. So the Pistons, not only has their defense, especially over the weekend, but that's just the last 2 games. But you can go back to the Spurs game. You can go back to the last game against Cleveland. Not only is the Pistons defense not been generating offense, but they're also losing the possession battle, which I've talked about all year, which is the recipe to the Pistons' success of generating more possessions than their opponent. They're turning the ball over. They're allowing teams to get offensive rebounds at a higher clip than they are. They are not scoring in the half court. They're not shooting well from beyond the arc. They're allowing teams to get off from the 3-point line, and they're also allowing them to get out in transition against them. Every single bit of the Detroit Pistons' strengths before the All-Star break, every single one of those have not been strengths for them since the All-Star break. And part of it, there is a part of it that you maybe could just sum up to, they've hit a lull in the season. They're just wanting to get to the playoffs. Every team struggles at some point. I mean, I guess there's some, you could maybe put a small percentage of that, But there is a lot of other things going on during this stretch of games where the Pistons have now lost, by the way, 4 straight games. Before this stretch, they hadn't lost back-to-back games all year, I don't believe. If they had been one time. They had now lost 4 straight games. Again, not just to contenders. They lost to a team that was without some of their best players. They lost to a team that is actively tanking. And they lost to a Miami Heat team that no one considers contenders. This is not good. This is just straight up not good. And in the process of this, what else has happened over the weekend is the Boston Celtics are now only 2 games behind the Pistons in the standings. And I don't know if you guys noticed or if you guys heard, but Jayson Tatum's back. And for a guy that just missed, 9 months due to an Achilles injury, he's looking pretty damn good for a guy like that. So if he's going to be looking like that come playoff time and the Celtics are on the Pistons' heels with him playing this well, when you consider what he's coming off of, with how the rest of the team has played well all year, that first seed, I am saying it now, the first seed for the Detroit Pistons is 100% in jeopardy for them right now. It is 100% in jeopardy. I would not be shocked if a month from now, if Boston has taken over the first seed. I'm going to hope that's not the case. I'd like the Pistons to finish with the first seed. It's not impossible for them to finish with the first seed. They can do it. But with how they've played, with what's going on for Boston, with some of the injuries Detroit now has to Ausar Thompson, would I be shocked if we're sitting here a month from now and now they've lost the 1 seed to the Boston Celtics? I would not be shocked. This team has not given much reason over the last 10 games to think that they are going to be able to keep up with how Boston's been playing. They have been bad for 10 games. This has not been good for 10 games now. For 10 games. Coming up, we'll get into the numbers and really get deeper into the analysis of what has caused their defense to completely disappear. Because that's the main issue here. The main issue here is their defense has completely fallen off the map. They look nothing like this defense that we saw for the first few months of the year, for the first 40-odd-some games of the year. What has happened? What's going on with the Pistons defense? They allowed over 100 points to the Miami Heat through 3 quarters. What has happened? We'll break it down coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Quo. Spring is a natural reset point. If there's one thing that can quietly cost business money, it's messy communication. Missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. Everything lives in one clean thread: calls, texts, voicemails, and the AI summaries save serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. It makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Make this the season. No opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers with Quo. Then I've got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. This one is Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in a lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you play and sign up with your first $5 lineup. It makes every dunk, every assist, and every big play that much more exciting. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports picks app, and it's super simple to play. It's easy. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you can cash it in. And one feature I really like is the early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you may have the option to cash out the winnings before the game even finishes. It's a really fun way to test your sports knowledge and stay locked into the action. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I do want to remind you guys real quick, Tuesdays, Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we record the Locked On Pistons Squad Show. That features me, Jake Riekma, and former Piston, two-time NBA champion, Lindsey Hunter. You guys want to watch live and ask questions to Lindsey live every Tuesday and Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Pistons or on the Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. That's where you guys can find it. You guys can get some questions in. But let's get back to what's going on with the Pistons. What's falling apart? Why is their defense falling apart? And I'll let you guys know this right now. I have my notes up right now because I usually take notes of what I want to talk about. If there's something that comes up or pops out to me after looking through some stats or watching the games, I'll jot them down so I don't forget what I want to talk about, something I really want to hit on. My notes app is full. It's very long. The reason why I bring that up is we probably are going to discuss what's going on with the Pistons, what is happening, why are they falling apart, what needs to improve. There's so much stuff that this will be talked about probably for this episode, next episode, and the next episode after that. There's no way I could fit this all into one episode. So I just picked the most important ones right now, which starts with the defense. Why is the defense falling apart? We'll go back to reason number one. Losing Ausar Thompson hurts them. Absolutely kills them. Now, Ausar was on the floor for the start of this. He wasn't hurt yet. He got hurt at the end or at the very beginning of the Spurs game. So he was there for the first, six games of this stretch. So he was here for the beginning of the fall off. But I just want to read this out. Since February 19th, which is the last 10 games, over the last 10 games, in the minutes that Ausar Thompson was on the floor for the Detroit Pistons, they have an offensive rating of 121.8 and a defensive rating of 104. So when Ausar was on the floor still, even during that stretch, their defense had been best in the NBA. Even during that stretch, during the first 6 games, when he was on the floor, defense remained amazing. In the minutes that he hasn't played, so this includes the games, the beginning of the stretch when he actually was here, but just off the floor, and now includes the minutes with him just not even here, with the last few games when he's been hurt. So it includes all those off minutes. The Pistons have a 109 offensive rating and a 119 defensive rating. So their offense goes to being the worst in the NBA, and their defense goes to being one of the worst defenses in the NBA, and they have a minus 9.1 net rating compared to the plus 17.8 net rating they have when he was on the floor. The reason why I bring that up, one, am I trying to paint Ausar's importance? Yeah, of course, that is part of it. The main reason, though, I'm pointing this out, is that this team, without Ausar on the floor, opens up so many of their defensive issues that get covered up by him. And the main one is dribble penetration. The Pistons, with him off the floor during this stretch, their perimeter defense has been absolutely horrific. And we were talking about this last week before Ausar got hurt. If it's not Ausar on the perimeter over these last 10 games, the perimeter defense has been atrocious. They are allowing dribble penetration at will every single play, it feels like. This game against Miami that I'm recording right after, we're not even doing like a game recap of just the Miami game or just the Brooklyn game, because this is just a sign of a bigger sample size. I don't want to spend time just talking about one game, but I'll reference the Miami game. This game against Miami, Jaime Jaquez, you would have thought that he was Tony Parker with how easy he was getting to the paint. You would have thought that he was Russell Westbrook, prime Derrick Rose. He was getting to the paint at will. I mean, every single time he was just going to the paint. Tyler Hero, getting to the paint every single time. Any ball handler for the Miami Heat were getting to the basket, it felt like every single possession. You go back to the Brooklyn game. Brooklyn only scored 107 points in this game against the Pistons. So you look at that and you say, okay, well, the Pistons defense must have been pretty good in that game. No. This is the problem with the Pistons, even during this stretch. Is the times where you see the Pistons defense look good still, they can't sustain it for longer than a few minutes. You go to the Orlando game. In the first half, Orlando was destroying them offensively. And then in the second half, the Pistons held them to 17 in the third and 18 in the fourth. So the defense was good for half of the game, but for the first half, it was horrific. In this game against Brooklyn, a team, again, that is actively tanking, In the first half, the Pistons played great defense. In the second half, Brooklyn dropped 61 on the Detroit Pistons. In this game against Miami, they allow 103 points through 3 quarters. Their perimeter defense outside of Ausar has been terrible. It's been absolute. The teams are hunting out Duncan. It feels like more than ever, and he's being roasted. Cade's perimeter defense, that game against the Spurs, I believe against the Spurs, I said it was his worst game of the year, I thought, where he just was terrible on both ends of the floor. I mean, he's not been nearly as good on the defensive end of the floor during this stretch. Jalen Duren, who is someone I want to talk about in a future episode because I'm going to spend too much time with him, but he's in the middle of what I think these last 10 games have been the worst defensive stretch of his, by far, of this season. I think it's the worst stretch you've seen from him since last year. Since like the beginning of last year when there was a lot of talking, he called himself out for how bad he was defensively. He's been bad on the defensive end of the floor last 10 games. But even guys like Isaiah Stewart, since Stu came back, he hasn't been good on the defensive end of the floor. There was a rotation in this game against the Miami Heat that sticks out. Easiest way to showcase this. The Miami Heat on the right side of the floor, they get dribble penetration, force some help. They kick out to the top of the key. I believe it was Duncan who makes the first rotation to the top of the key. Then they swing it to the left wing. I forget who the guard was. It might have been Daniss. It was a guard. I forget who it was. It might have been Marcus Sasser too. Either way, they make the rotation out to the right wing or the left wing. Then that wing swings it to the corner where Khahil Ware is. And Stu is supposed to make this next rotation, and Stu is just standing straight up in the paint, flat-footed. And Khahil Ware gets a wide open shot because Stu doesn't even attempt to make the final rotation. So even, like, the bad defenders have been terrible. Duncan has been terrible. Duren has not been good. Name any defender, any player on the Pistons that is not a good defender, they've been terrible. But even the players that you think that have been good defenders for the Pistons, Stu, I don't think he's been good since coming back defensively at all, especially in this Miami game. He was not good. Cade has not been nearly as good defensively for the Pistons. Tobias has sneakily, he has some games when he puts up points, but sneakily has been really bad defensively lately. Daniss Jenkins has been bad on both ends of the floor. And Ron Holland, who everyone loves, I love Ron. This isn't to say that he's not going to be, there's nothing about his future, simply about what's been happening as of late. He also joins that list with Stu of guys who have just been playing way below their talent level on the defensive end of the floor. Ron's been fouling a lot. He's been allowing dribble penetration himself, which has been very odd to see from him. He has not been able to get it going offensively at all, really. But more importantly, defensively, he has not been as impactful as he has been throughout the whole year than he has been since the All-Star break, I don't think, especially as of late. So you got the Pistons' bad defenders looking terrible. You got their good defenders not showing up how they should. And now you lose Ausar Thompson, who's your best perimeter defender, your best defender on the team. So now that opens up a glaring hole in the middle of the time period that all of a sudden it's looking like your defenders and your players are falling off at the same time defensively. It's not a good recipe. It's a recipe for a disaster. And what's come of that is the Pistons allowing teams to go crazy from three because they allow dribble penetration nonstop. The best way to generate open threes is by getting to the paint, forcing defense to have to help, kicking it out, and getting open threes. The Pistons have been allowing that to absolute no end, just nonstop the last 10 games. Miami, the craziest thing about this one, I tweeted this out during the game. At halftime, Miami had 67 points. They were 4 of 14 from the three-point line. They were 4 of 14 from the three-point line in the first half and still had a 60.4 true shooting percentage as a team. As a team, they had a 60 true shooting percentage while shooting 4 of 14 from three. That basically means they were getting to the paint and scoring every single time. Even if they weren't hitting threes, they were getting layup lines at the rim whenever they wanted. It's been, the defense for the Detroit Pistons has completely fallen off. It's been straight up bad. And I don't know what is the solution, how you can improve it. Because if Ausar's out, you have to try to plug in the perimeter defense. And I don't know if they have the personnel to do so. Ron's the next best, but JB has not started Ron in place of Ausar. And Ron himself has not played well in the last few games. So if Ron doesn't step up to it, they don't really have anyone else to help cut off dribble penetration. to cut off the head of the snake. Javonte Green is not great on the point of attack. He's a much better help defender. He's a much better guy playing in the passing lanes. That's where he makes his bread on defensive end. He's very good at it. But at the point of attack, that's not where his strength is. The next best point of attack defender that they can maybe play, I don't even want to say who, because I don't know. It's Ron. Ron's the next one, but he's not playing a ton. He's not playing well, and JB's not starting him next. And I'm not saying it's to blame JB. Oh, JB should be starting Ron. He's failing them. No, I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying they haven't started Ron. He hasn't played as well. So if that's not the answer, I don't know where they go for perimeter defense. But if they can't stop dribble penetration, this is what's going to happen for the rest of the year. Their defense is not going to recover if they can't stop dribble penetration. It's just as simple as that. And the concerning thing, the most concerning thing with this is it isn't like we're sitting here talking. It's not like I'm sitting here saying to you guys, oh, well, they couldn't stop Donovan Mitchell off the dribble, man. It's time to panic. Oh, they couldn't stop James Harden off the dribble. It's time to panic. It's not just stars. It's not that they're playing stars and they can't stop those guys from getting off the dribble. They can't stop Tyler Hero, who's a really good player, kind of like an all-star player, but Jaime Jaquez was just getting to the paint whenever he wanted to against the Detroit Pistons. Davion Mitchell was getting to the paint whenever he wanted to against the Detroit Pistons. You go back to the Brooklyn game. Again, a Brooklyn team that is seriously trying to lose every single game. The Pistons could not cut off dribble penetration from Nolan Trayer. I don't even know if I pronounced his name right. I apologize if I hadn't. But they even allowed Danny Wolf, who is a big guy, to consistently get to the paint. They got outworked on the glass by the Brooklyn Nets by Day'Ron Sharpe and Michael Porter Jr., who had 13 rebounds. Michael Porter Jr. was allowed to get 13 rebounds against the Detroit Pistons. San Antonio, it's not just De'Aaron Fox that beat them off the dribble nonstop. It was Dylan Harper. It was Stephon Castle. It was Devin Vassell. It was Keldon Johnson. It was everyone that stepped on the floor. They couldn't stop the dribble penetration. Go back to Cleveland. Dennis Schroeder, they couldn't stop getting to the paint every single time. Craig Porter Jr. was getting to the paint. Keon Ellis was getting to the paint. Go on and on and on. It's not the fact that Pistons are just struggling with stars off the dribble. They are struggling with literally anybody that has a basic ball handle from getting to the paint. And that is the core issue. That breaks down everything. Their rotations have been terrible. Their closeouts have been terrible. Bam Adebayo tonight I thought he was going to hit 10 threes tonight with how many threes Jalen Duren just refused to contest and rotate on. I mean, I don't know what else to say. The defense has been putrid. And no game was worse than this one against Miami. They've been putrid in other games defensively, but none was worse. None was worse than this one. Every shot was 5 shots form shooting for Miami. Just disrespectful, honestly, at that point to the game of basketball. Another great win. We'll wrap it up here. Again, I could go on for literally 30, 40, 50 more minutes about this. I have so much stuff in my notes here I wanted to talk about. We'll save it for future episodes, but we have to go because we're running a little bit long here. But to kind of showcase what I'm talking about, Bam Adebayo in this game, he took 10 threes. You think Bam's taking 10 threes unless he's wide open? Bam got 10 threes off because I guarantee you 9 of those 10 threes were just wide open shots that the Pistons just straight up gave him because they just didn't want to rotate and didn't want to contest him. It's not just effort. Effort's not there. Effort hasn't been there. That's bad too. But it's not just effort. They can't stop anybody from getting to the paint. And then the rotations are bad effort. It's not been good. This is not a good sign. This is not good. Coming up, I want to talk about, should we have expected some of this from some players because they were playing above their heads to start the year? We'll talk about who I'm mentioning and whether that's the case. We'll talk about coming up. College basketball is nonstop, big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger payout and potential wins with the College Basketball Parlay Profit Boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits the read. Then you can apply the Profit Boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Look at odds around your team if they are in season. Go safe, go bold. Ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game again with FanDuel. Now I've got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors, Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have yet to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I do again want to say I apologize if this episode is running a little too long for you guys. There's just so much I want to hit on. Like I said earlier, I've said to you guys now a few times that I'm picking the most important things to try to talk about, but then it's kind of hard to stay with those things because those things are like the core issue, and then you just find the roots that are the branches of what all those issues are becoming. And we'll talk about it in the future episode. Next episode, we'll dive into their offense, what's happening in the half court. Cade struggled. He played a good game against Miami offensively, but Cade hasn't had the greatest go last week or so, last few games offensively. What's happening there? We'll talk about that in a future episode. But regression to the mean. Should we have expected some of this? Defensively, I'm shocked. I'm not gonna lie. I know a lot of it has to do with the Ausar being out, but like I said, it was starting to slip a little even before Ausar went out. I am shocked that the buy-in, the effort, the consistency, the attention to detail with your off-ball rotations, I am shocked that has gone. That not gone maybe is a bit stronger. That insinuates that it can't come back. I am shocked that it's just disappeared. I'm shocked that for an extended stretch, not for a few games. It's been 10 games now. So I am shocked about. Offensively of some of these players, or just the overall play of some of these players, I think maybe we shouldn't have been. We shouldn't be so shocked. Now, I'm talking about really specifically a few players here. The main one is Daniss Jenkins. I feel like, and again, Daniss has had a good year for him, and what he was doing for the Pistons for a while was they very much needed what he did earlier in the year. First few months of the year, when he got his chance, what he was able to do when guys were out, even some of the games where guys weren't out and he got to play, he had played well. I am not taking that away from him at all. But what is undeniable is that he has been on a steady decline for 20 games now. And I know the stats floating out. People have been talking about his stats since he got paid. I'm not going to do that because it insinuates something that I don't want to get behind. I am not going to insinuate that an NBA player or anyone got paid and then decided, or not decided, but just said, okay, I can relax now, or is not trying as hard. I would not insinuate that really about any player unless there was some report that came out and teammates felt like that in the offseason or something like that. That usually happens with a star or something in drama-filled locker rooms. I'm not going to insinuate that with Daniss because I don't think that's at all what's happening with him. I think what's happening is a regression to the mean is what's happening with Daniss. The last 20 games, he has a 44 true shooting percentage. I mean, that's worse than Killian Hayes. The last 10 games, he's at a 30, 35 true shooting. I'll say it again. 35 true shooting. I didn't even know that was possible for a multiple game stretch. He's shooting 29% from the field, 23% from the three, and 58% from the free throw line. If you go even over the last 5 games, it somehow even gets worse. He's at 32 true shooting percentage. He has been on a steady decline for 20 games, and if he gets it back, that will be great. But that one is one where I now sit back objectively and analytically. I sit back and say, should we maybe have foreseen a two-way player who had been playing well and shooting crazy percentages from beyond the arc? Should we have foreseen that probably would regress to the mean for a two-way player? Probably. We probably should have seen that coming. It's not just the shooting either. Daniss, the passing has not nearly been as good. The decision-making has not nearly been as good. Some really tough shots he's decided to take, especially in that Washington game. So he's been just flat out really bad. Like there's no other way to say. He's just been really bad for a while now. That's hurting them. Their second unit has not been nearly as effective because he's been pretty bad recently. Javonte Green. He hasn't just been. I don't want to say he's just been. I don't think he's just been bad the last 10 games. But again, should we have foreseen that a guy who had been, at times, I think back-end rotation player at times in his career, but most of the time, like an end-of-bench guy, should we have expected that maybe he would regress to the mean a little bit, no longer shoot 35, 36% from deep, and be effective as he was offensively for them, and as good as he was defensively for them, that the just pure hustle would end up running out on impact? Like, should we have maybe foreseen that coming? Maybe. The last 10 games for Javonte, he's shooting 31% from beyond the arc, 53 true shooting percentage. Way down from where he's been really for most of the year. So Javonte he hasn't been flat out, but he's just been way more inconsistent, which is probably what we should have expected out of a guy like that. The consistency we saw for most of the season from him probably wasn't going to sustain. So you're seeing Daniss play straight up bad. I mean, Karras didn't play in this game against Miami, but he's been straight up bad off the bench. Javonte's been very inconsistent off the bench. Huerter, who I think is probably going to be the Pistons' new Svi Mykhailiuk, which, if you guys followed Svi years ago when he was with the Pistons, he was a really good shooter, went into an offseason told that he had to work on everything else about his game, came back the next season, every other part of his game looked majorly improved, but then he forgot to shoot, so it just didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can't leverage the best ability well, it's supposed to, unlock all of it if you can't shoot. And so far with the Pistons, that seems like what's happening with Huerter as well off the bench. Is that, yeah, he had 4 assists in this game against Miami. He can make some nice passes. He makes really good decisions. He's able to attack closeouts and get to the paint consistently. He's actually a pretty good finisher. I mean, that's all. I think he's probably shown to be a way better option than Caris LeVert, Daniss, even. Like, he's shown to be a better option than those guys. But again, he hasn't been able to hit threes. So now you're dealing with a guy that you got for shooting. He's able to do all these other things for you, which is cool. But he can't hit threes. He hasn't been able to hit shots from beyond the arc. So you got that inconsistency within one player. This what you pick your poison kind of thing. You got 2 players who are playing straight up bad off your bench. You got one player who had been really good for you all year that's been majorly inconsistent, and in his lows have been really, really low. And then we'll wrap it up here as well. Trust me, there's probably going to be a lot of people that want me to talk about Paul Reed. We're going to talk about Paul in a future episode, but I guess I'll hint on it real quickly. We're getting close to 40 minutes. I have to get out of here. Paul needs to play. They need to find a way to play him, especially with the rest of the bench struggling. He's just, every time he plays, he's just impactful. That's all I can say right now with Paul, but we'll dive further into it in a future episode. The last thing I wanted to say is, remember like a week and a half ago, we recorded and talked about, or I discussed, why hasn't JB given these shooters a chance to play for some of these defensive guys? And I said it was because the shooters, quote unquote, that the Pistons have on the bench that's not playing aren't consistent enough shooters for JB to actually trust them. And prime example, look at the last 2 games from Marcus Sasser. In the first game, Marcus Sasser plays against the Brooklyn Nets. He has 8 points in the first half, shooting really well. And then the second half, now I know he got hurt at halftime, but he did end up playing in the second half a lot of minutes. Wasn't able to hit a shot in the second half. So he finished the game 3 of 9. And then in this game against Miami, he's 0 of 3. So, and then they try to give Chaz some minutes as well. And again, Chaz is a rookie. He's a second round. I'm not trying to say, oh, it's over for Chaz. But like, these are the options JB has where people say, hey, the guy plays some shooters. Well, like, are the shooters that JB, the quote unquote shooters that people want him to play, can they actually even be trusted enough to be shooters if you're going to take the hypothetical downgrade defensively? And the downgrade in size, if you go with Marcus. Like, that's the problem they're running with their bench. Their bench guys are really regressing to the mean, and they haven't been able to find answers from really anybody outside of Paul Reed. And he doesn't play consistently. So, long episode today. We'll dive further even into it. And in the next episode, we'll talk more about Paul Reed. We'll talk about Cade's offense. We'll talk about Jalen Duren, who I think the numbers from some of his games have been lying about his impact and some of the things that have been going wrong for him as of late. And then we'll talk about Tobias, who I think has been struggling despite some of the high-scoring games as well. Gotta get out of here. We're at 41 minutes. Sorry for the long episode. Appreciate you guys for listening. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen every single day. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.